My world shattered in a single moment, the key in my hand trembling as I opened the door to my home, expecting love, only to find betrayal. His laughter, her voice, my niece, my blood, twisted together in my bed, on our anniversary. The roses in my garden wept, but I did not yet. I am Clara, and this is the story of how I turned pain into power, a storm rising from the ashes of trust. Before we dive into this surprising story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment, letting us know where you're watching from. Now, let's enjoy the story together. Anticipating our 8th wedding anniversary, 8 years with Nathan, our golden infinity, as we'd called it in those early giddy days when love felt like a promise carved in stone, filled my heart, and I had planned it as a grand gesture, a surprise to wow my husband. After 3 exhausting days at a marketing summit in Seattle, I had booked an earlier flight home to San Diego. The irony of that phrase would later nag at me, a bitter reminder of how brittle forever can be. I could already picture his hazel eyes widening and that slow, warm smile spreading across his face as I walked through the door. I also pictured his arms enveloping me and the familiar weight of them grounding me as always. In the taxi, the driver, a cheerful man with a thick mustache, asked if I was returning from a vacation. "No," I said, my lips curving into a smile. "I'm heading to one." The plane landed at 1:47 p.m., almost 3 hours beforehand. Our home, a Spanish-style villa on the edge of a quiet cul-de-sac in La Jolla, was our haven. We purchased it 4 years ago, following Nathan's promotion to senior partner at his engineering firm. It was a sprawling dream with arched windows and terracotta tiles, more space than 2 people could possibly need. Nathan had said, "Room for the future," with a soft, hopeful voice and a squeezed hand. I gave the driver a generous tip, wheeled my suitcase up the path lined with bougainvillea, and slipped my key into the lock. When the door sighed open, the house was quiet, but not dead. There was a faint pulse that suggested presence, as if the air itself held its breath. "Nathan?" My voice echoed through the foyer as I called, but there was no answer. His sleek black Audi was parked in the driveway, so I knew he was home. I placed my suitcase by the stairs, but what caught my attention like a fishhook was a detail: 2 wine glasses on the glass coffee table in the living room. One of them had a crimson lipstick stain on it, a bold, garish shade I had never worn. My heart raced, but my mind raced for answers. Could it be a client? Could it be a friend visiting to help plan our unexpected anniversary, unwilling to let them break? I held on to those brittle strands of reason. Then I heard it, a sound that made my blood turn to ice, a woman's voice, a soft, lilting laugh that drifted from upstairs, and Nathan's low, intimate chuckle that used to make my heart skip a beat, and now it was a blade to slicing through the illusion I'd created around our life. My legs moved on their own, and every step up the staircase felt like a descent into a nightmare. The laughter became more distinct, and with it, a voice I recognized. My breath caught, and my fingers tightened on the banister. It couldn't be her. Not her. The voice was that of Lily, my niece, my sister's 21-year-old daughter, the girl who had spent many summers with us, who had called me Aunt Clara since she was a teenager, who had clung to me last Thanksgiving, crying over a breakup, her tears soaking my sweater. Lily, with her wide blue eyes and sun-streaked hair, had once dyed it to resemble my auburn waves, a cruel mockery of the truth I was about to face. I saw Nathan and Lily, entangled on the bed I'd slept in for years, with his hands in her hair and her body pressed against his, in a way that left no room for misunderstanding. The world tilted, time stretching into a surreal haze, and I pushed the bedroom door open, the hinges silent, giving me a full view of my husband and my niece, locked in an embrace that broke my reality into 1,000 jagged pieces. The bedroom door, our bedroom door, stands slightly ajar. Lily was the first to notice me, her eyes wide, her mouth forming a perfect horrified OU. Nathan turned, and his face, filled with shock and guilt, but not nearly enough remorse, told me this wasn't a passing error but rather a truth he'd been hiding for far longer than I could bear to think about. For 3 agonizing seconds, I stood frozen, my suitcase handle still clutched in my hand, watching a scene that couldn't be real. He stumbled and fumbled to wrap the covers, our sheets, the ones I had picked because they were so soft, around himself. "Clara, wait," he said. With tears streaming down her cheeks and mascara running down her cheeks, Lily's voice cracked as she frantically sought for a discarded garment and said, "Aunt Clara, I'm so sorry. I didn't." With a voice like that of a stranger, I said, "Stop. Don't call me that. Not now, not ever again." Instead of screaming, collapsing, or hurling accusations, I closed the door with a gentle click, sealing them in their betrayal, and went downstairs. My heart pounded, but I moved steadily, and I could hear their frantic movements behind me. Nathan calling my name, Lily sobbing uncontrollably. In the kitchen, I placed my purse on the counter, poured a glass of water, and took a slow sip, the cool liquid doing nothing to calm the fire in my chest. Minutes later, Nathan showed up with his pants thrown on hastily and his face flushed from more than just effort. "Clara, please," he pleaded, approaching me with the urgency of an animal in a corner. "Let me explain. It's not what you think." "How much time?" I inquired in a tone that sounded distant, as if I were observing this tragedy from a distance. It just happened, Clara. I swear." "We didn't mean," he said, running a hand through his black hair, a move that I had always considered endearing, but now find disgusting. "How much time?" I repeated, focusing on his eyes and giving an order rather than a question. "It began 5 months ago," he said in a voice that was almost audible. "It wasn't planned. It just—" I interrupted him, the words cutting through the air. "She sips my niece Nathan, my sister Sip's daughter, who is 21 years old and practically a child. And you," my voice broke, revealing the rage seething inside me as I said, "in our bed, on our anniversary." "Aunt Clara, I'm so sorry," Lily cried out as she arrived in the kitchen doorway, clothed now, her face a mess of grief and shame. "I never wanted to hurt you. I love him." "Love?" The word shattered the room like a whip. "You believe this to be love? Both of you, get out." Nathan grabbed me and touched my arm, saying, "Where are we going, Clara? This is also my home. Your residence?" with a brittle, deadly chuckle. I said, "You have 20 minutes to pack what you need for tonight. You can come back for more tomorrow when I'm at work, but tonight, you're on your own. You lost the right to call it."
The moment you brought her into our bed. With a glint of anger in his eyes.
His expression hardened. "You can't just throw me out, Clara. Legally," he said. "Legally? ? You want to talk about legalities after I caught you with my niece in our home on our anniversary?" I stepped closer and spoke in a low, deadly voice. "Please consider leaving through that door, Nathan. Try me." "I never meant for this to happen," Lily muttered. I thought it was real." Something in my eyes persuaded him, and with a slow, resigned gesture, he nodded and walked toward the stairs. I added, scarcely raising my voice above a whisper, "Tell your mother what you've done, or I will." They departed, their footsteps fading into the evening, and I sat by myself in the kitchen as the light bled from the sky. The silence was deafening, a void where my life had been. I didn't cry yet, but instead a cold clarity settled over me. This wasn't just betrayal, it was annihilation. They had stripped me bare, transforming 8 years of love, trust, and dreams into a mockery. The idea of them laughing behind my back, glancing at family get-togethers while I was unaware, made my stomach turn. I grabbed my phone and hovered my thumb over my sister Elena's number. I could call her right away, break her heart, by telling her the truth about her daughter, call our friends, and reveal Nathan's deceit to everyone who had ever thought we were a perfect couple. I could destroy it all with a single tap, but something stopped me. A spark of something darker and more purposeful ignited within me. Revenge served in the heat of rage would be short-lived, momentarily satisfying but gone too soon. Revenge served cold, calculated, and precise, that would be forever. I put the phone down and went upstairs. The bedroom smelled of their treachery, so I stripped the bed and stuffed the sheets in a trash bag before opening my laptop. I had learned how to analyze issues, and remove barriers with surgical accuracy from my work as a corporate strategist. Nathan and Lily thought today would be the worst day of their lives, but they were wrong. That day was approaching, and I would be its architect. After Nathan and Lily left, the house felt like a stranger's, with the walls bearing the echoes of a life that was no longer mine. I stood in the kitchen, with the glass of water, still in my hand, its surface quivering with my anger. The silence enveloped me, whispering truths I was unprepared to hear. 8 years of marriage, 4 years, in this La Jolla villa, innumerable moments of laughter, and promises, all turned to ash in one afternoon. I put the glass down, its clink against the counter sounding like a gunshot in the silence, and decided that I would not break until I had brought justice to the ruins they had left behind. My footsteps were soft on the terracotta tiles as I moved through the house like a ghost. Upstairs, the bedroom was a wound, the air heavy with betrayal. I tore the last of the linens off the mattress, stuffed them into another trash bag, and dragged it to the garage. It was a mechanical act, but it grounded me and gave my hands something to do while my mind raced. I opened my laptop on the dining table, its glow casting harsh shadows across the room. My work as a corporate strategist taught me to dissect complexity, identify weak points in any system, and take advantage of them. Nathan and Lily presented a challenge that required meticulous dismantling. I wanted time first, so I contacted my workplace and asked for 2 weeks of leave, starting right now. My supervisor, Karen, paused as her concern resonated through the telephone, saying, "Clara, are you okay? This isn't like you," I said, swallowing the truth and letting it burn in my throat. "I have a family emergency and need to handle some personal matters." She did not inquire further, simply granting me the leave I requested. I ended the call, the burden of my deception settling upon me like dust. Next, I texted Nathan, hesitating as my fingers hovered over the screen, conveying, "I will be staying at home and require time alone. Please do not contact me for 2 weeks." His reply was swift and urgent. "Clara, please, we need to talk. I made a terrible mistake. Can we meet?" Next I texted Nathan, freezing my fingers against the screen, saying, "I'm staying in the house, I need time alone. Don't contact me for 2 weeks." His response was immediate and desperate. "Clara, please, we need to talk. I made a terrible mistake. Can we meet? Could we meet for coffee at a neutral location?" After staring at his words with an icy heart, I erased the message. I had nothing further to say at that point since the words were too kind for what I was trying to communicate. I woke up the following morning in the guest room, with a strange bed underneath me. My phone buzzed with notifications, 12 missed calls from Nathan, 3 from Lily, and 4 from my sister Elena. Lily had revealed the truth to her mother at that time, and I wasn't ready to hear Elena's voice, her inevitable shock and shame. I turned off the phone and started my reconnaissance. Nathan and I had always shared passwords, a trust I once cherished, now a weapon in my hands. I logged into our joint accounts, including credit cards, bank statements, and emails, while my eyes searched for the strands of his deceit. I discovered a tapestry of lies that had been carefully woven over months. He had made reservations for dinner for 2 at restaurants we had never been to together, charged me for hotel rooms in San Diego on nights when he had claimed to be working late, and bought me jewelry and lingerie that I had never seen before. Each discovery felt like a knife twisting deeper. But I didn't flinch. I downloaded everything and organized it into folders labeled by date and category, evidence and ammunition. The betrayal extended beyond just Lily. It was a double life that had been painstakingly planned while I remained blind, trusting and foolish. The accuracy of his deception infuriated me, not the act itself, but the artistry, the way he'd played the loyal husband while creating something else in the background. By day 3 I had discovered a pattern. The most damning evidence was in Nathan's cloud storage, photos of him and Lily from everyday scenes, such as brunch at a seaside cafe, walks in Balboa Park, and a weekend trip to Santa Barbara. Nathan documented their entire relationship while I was away on business or visiting my parents in Phoenix. In one picture, they were wearing matching bracelets, delicate silver bands glinting in the sunlight. I compared our credit card statements and discovered the purchase, 2 custom bracelets from a jeweler in Gaslamp Quarter, made 4 months prior, the day after our 7th anniversary. The discovery should have broken me, but instead it strengthened my resolve. They had celebrated their milestones while making fun of mine. I moved to the legal front, my strategist mind mapping the terrain. I consulted 3 of the best divorce lawyers in San Diego, setting up back-to-back meetings under the pretense of preliminary discussions. As I explained my case, each of them listened, their eyes narrowing at the details. By meeting with them, I made sure Nathan couldn't hire them. Conflict of interest. A quiet checkmate. They taught me about hidden asset investigations, California's community property laws, and the divorce process itself. As they say, knowledge is power. I was arming myself with every weapon I could find. By day 5, I had compiled a thorough timeline of Nathan's infidelity. It wasn't just Lily, there had been other women, not all at once, but in order, tracing a line of women back through the majority of our marriage, including a paralegal from his firm 3 years ago and a client 2 years prior. Each affair was brief but purposeful, and the pattern of conquest made Lily not an exception, but a continuation. The realization didn't break me down as it should have, rather, it strengthened me, making my grief more difficult and icy. I wasn't just fighting for myself, I was fighting for every version of myself that had loved him, believed in him, and built a life with him. Nathan's cloud storage held the most agonizing discovery on day 7. 3 months ago, a time-stamped video captured Nathan and Lily laughing and toasting with champagne in a hotel room. Lily was wearing a necklace that I recognized, a sapphire pendant that I had admired at a boutique last summer. Nathan had claimed it was too extravagant, but there it was, draped around her neck. "To us," Nathan said in the video, his voice warm, "forever. Starting now." Lily giggled and leaned in to kiss him. The video ended, but its echo lingered, a wound that pulsed with every heartbeat. They dared to dream of forever while standing on the wreckage of my life. They believed their love was a secret flame, untouchable. And I would show them how easily flames could be extinguished, how their forever could crumble under the weight of truth. I went back to my laptop, my fingers steady as I added the video to my archive. It wasn't just evidence, it was a promise to them, to myself, that I would rewrite the ending of their story. That night, I let myself cry, not out of sadness, but out of rage. The tears burned my cheeks, and each one was a vow. By the 10th day, my plan was taking shape, a web of strategies woven with the accuracy of a spider, and Nathan's vulnerabilities were evident: his career, his finances, and his social standing. Each of these was a thread that I could pull, shattering his world. Lily's approach would be different, her betrayal would be more profound. Family turning against family, youth betraying trust, and her punishment would be more subtle, dismantling her delusion that she was the heroine of a love story rather than the antagonist in mine. I started with the financial front. Nathan had a separate account, one that I had never noticed, and small, regular transfers over the previous year had built up a nest egg, $15,000, enough for a new beginning, or perhaps a future with Lily. The cold calculation and premeditation of it infuriated me, so I kept track of every transaction, adding it to my arsenal. On day 12, I calmly called Elena and said, "We need to talk, coffee is just for us." Her response was strained and full of guilt. "Clara, I'm so sorry," Lily told me. "I don't know what to say," I interrupted. "Not over the phone, meet me tomorrow." We met at a small cafe in Coronado, which is far from our usual haunts. Elena looked 10 years older than she actually was, with red-rimmed eyes and trembling hands around her coffee cup. "I never thought Lily could do this," she said, her voice breaking. "I raised her better, Clara, I swear. Could you please share how she explained it to you?" I watched her intently, and inquired in an even tone. Elena gasped at the final words, her face crumpling as she said, "I'm horrified, Clara. If I'd known that she and Nathan have been involved for months, that you caught them, that she thinks she's in love with him." "Did she mention that, on our anniversary, it was in my bed?" As I saw the horror play out on her face, I said sharply. She muttered, "Oh God, no. She didn't, Clara, you're not accountable for her behavior, but I need to know if you're with me. Elena, I said, reaching across the table and taking her hand. I am with you, she stated firmly, despite her tears, but what she did is unforgivable. I stand by you. She is my daughter. Elena listened, wiping away her tears and nodding as I spoke. They humiliated you, she finally said. They deserve whatever comes next. Her words were a spark, igniting the fire I'd been tending to, and I left the cafe with a new resolve. My plan, no longer a solitary endeavor, but a shared mission, Elena's pain mirroring mine, binding us in purpose. I outlined part of my plan, not the full scope, just enough to secure her cooperation. As I sat in the dining room at home, my laptop illuminated the darkness. Nathan's messages had changed from pleading to demanding. Clara, we need to talk like adults. You can't shut me out forever. Lily's texts were a daily routine, changing from excuses to explanations. I never wanted to hurt you, but you can't choose who you love. I hope you'll understand someday. I read her most recent message, my lips curling into a bitter smile. They believed they knew what was coming. A divorce, some family drama, a few awkward months. They had no idea of the storm I was calling upon. A reckoning that would leave them with nothing but the consequences of their decisions. As the second week came to an end, I stood in the garden of the villa, the roses I had planted last spring blooming in defiant bursts of red. I had rid the house of Nathan, redecorated the bedroom with new linens and curtains, and reclaimed it as mine. The woman who had walked in on her husband and niece was fading, replaced by someone sharper and more dangerous. I gazed out at the ocean, its waves a rhythm of promise. Tomorrow the planning would come to an end, and the execution would start. Nathan and Lily had broken my world, and now I would break theirs, not with screams or tears, but with a precision they'd never see coming. The storm was ready, and I was its heart. I stood on the balcony, coffee warming my hands, the ocean's breath whispering courage. 2 weeks of silence, of gathering truths like stones for a fire, had brought me here. I had completed the planning. My mind drew a clear map of Nathan and Lily's destruction, as clear as the stars on a desert night. Today, I would set the first sparks, let them catch, and let them burn. They thought they had broken me, but I was no shattered thing. I was the storm, and my justice would fall like rain. The woman staring back was not the Clara who had stood motionless in her bedroom doorway. She was forged in betrayal, tempered by rage. And today she would move with the precision of a hawk. I dressed carefully, wearing a tailored navy blazer and skirt and a sleek black folder full of evidence, and I drove to Nathan's office downtown, the pulse of the city matching mine. My first strike was directed at Nathan's heart, not his love, but his pride, his career, the engineering firm where he had risen to senior partner, the throne he valued above all else. As I walked in, the young woman at reception, Mia, grinned and said, "Mrs. Harper, it's wonderful to see you. Is Nathan expecting you?" "No," I responded, my grin a facade. "I'm here for Mr. Caldwell." "Is she free?" Her warmth reminded me of the life I'd previously had, the wife who brought pastries for the team and who smiled at business parties. My objective was Richard Caldwell, the firm's founder and Nathan's mentor. He had always loved me and referred to me as the brains behind Nathan's charm, a praise that suddenly felt sour. Mia looked confused but nodded, buzzing me through to the executive level. With a view of the port beyond, Richard's office was all steel and glass. As I walked in, he stood up, his silver hair gleaming. "Clara, what a surprise. To what do I owe the pleasure?" He leaned forward and listened as I opened the folder and slid documents across the desk, screenshots of Nathan's misuse of company software, invoices for side projects he'd funneled through the firm's resources, and bank transfers showing payments he'd pocketed, all painstakingly gathered from our shared accounts, my strategist's eye missing nothing. I sat across from him, the portfolio unopened in my lap, my voice as calm as a still lake. "Richard, I'm here about Nathan, about something I found while preparing for our divorce." Richard's face tightened as he traced the documents, his shock turning to a quiet rage. "Clara, this is serious, a breach of ethics, of trust. How long has this been going on? I said, my tone heavy with regret. I discovered the truth while reviewing our finances. I thought you should know. Nathan's always spoken so highly of your guidance. I couldn't let this stay hidden, not with the firm's reputation at stake. He took off his spectacles and massaged his eyes. Does Nathan know you're here? I shook my head. I'm not sure, but it's been months. Maybe longer. I'm sorry to bring this to you, but I had no choice. Richard nodded, realizing the gravity of my request, and I said no, and I'd prefer he didn't, not from me. You have my word, Clara. And thank you for your integrity. Not many would do this, especially now. I successfully delivered the first blow, but I wasn't done yet. The afternoon brought my second move, which was directed at the social threads that held Nathan's life together, our mutual friends, the people who had danced at our wedding, shared our vacations, and believed in our perfect love. By noon, Nathan would be called to a meeting for which he couldn't prepare and face accusations supported by evidence he couldn't deny. I met our best friends, Sarah and Michael, at a quiet bistro in Del Mar. Their silence after the betrayal had been deafening, and their loyalties were torn. I stirred my iced tea and said, softly but deliberately, I understand if you want to stay friends with Nathan, but there's something you should know before you decide. I slid my phone across the table and opened text messages I had discovered in Nathan's cloud. Messages between him and Sarah that were 9 months old, not explicit but intimate, flirtatious. Late-night exchanges that crossed boundaries a married man shouldn't cross. Sarah's face went pale, her breath caught. And Michael's eyes flicked from the screen to his wife, confusion hardening into betrayal. I said in a soft voice, it never went further. But it's part of a pattern, Sarah. You weren't the only one he approached, you were just the only one who didn't say yes. The words fell like stones, and Michael's jaw was clenched, and Sarah's hands trembled. I didn't need to say anything more. The seed had been sown. By evening, our social circle would whisper about Nathan's dishonesty, not only with me but also with them. His allies would turn, his support disintegrating from within. And the second blow was softer but no less deadly, a wound that would fester in the quiet moments. The third strike was for Lily and the family that had raised us both. I set up a meeting through Elena at our parents' house in Encinitas, a neutral place where truths could be spoken. Everyone would be there, including my parents, Elena, her husband Tom, their younger kids, and Lily, whose presence was essential. I arrived last, the tension in the air heavy, and Lily sat in a corner with her eyes downcast and her blonde hair dull, no longer mimicking mine. My parents' faces were stone, their silence a wall. Elena's eyes met mine, a silent pledge of support. And I stood in front of them, my folder in hand, my voice steady as a river. I started by saying, thank you for coming. It's challenging, yet we must confront the brokenness instead of avoiding it. I turned to Lily, her defiance a glimmer beneath her guilt, and said, you've told everyone you fell in love with Nathan, that it was a spark you couldn't stop. That's the story you hold to make your choices feel right. She nodded, barely, her lips tight. I opened the folder and distributed copies of my evidence, which included credit card statements, hotel receipts, and text fragments. The documents, all dated, were damning. This isn't love, Lily. This is what Nathan does, Lily. He finds women, makes them feel special, and then discards them. This pattern includes you, his assistant, and her, a client, all while he was married to me. Lily's hands trembled as she thumbed through the pages, her face fading. This doesn't mean he doesn't love me, she whispered. But her voice was thin and cracking. My mother, who had been silent up until this point, leaned forward and said, look at the dates, Lily. Some of these gifts and trips coincide with the time you claim your love started. The room fell silent as Lily's eyes darted across the documents. The truth dawned on her. Her special moments, the ones she had clung to, were part of Nathan's playbook, practiced and repeated. I lowered my voice, saying, I didn't do this to wound you, Lily. I did it so you see. You gave up your family, your honor, for a man who collects hearts like trophies. I left the house, the ocean air cool against my skin, and Elena followed, her voice low. Was it all true, Clara? Lily's sobs broke the silence, raw and ragged, when Elena reached for her. But she pulled away, running out of the room. The family sat stunned, my parents' eyes heavy with sorrow, Elena's with resolve. The other females? Elena gave me a fierce hug, and said, "What you did in there, it was mercy. In a way, better she knows now than years later, when she's lost more." I nodded and continued, thinking about the strikes that were still to come. Every word, Lily was just the latest. The only difference was, she was family. That made her both forbidden and easy. I sat in the dining room of the villa that night, with my files spread out in front of me like a war map. Nathan's company would suspend him by morning, his friends would turn by the end of the week, and Lily's love fantasy was already falling apart. Each blow had come true, but it was only the beginning. As I sipped the wine, the glass shimmering in the sunlight, I sensed the escalating turmoil within. Nathan and Lily believed they had witnessed the worst, but they were mistaken. The real reckoning was still to come, and I would wield it like a blade, sharp and merciless. That night, the roses in my garden bloomed brighter, as if they knew what was coming, as if they were waiting for the fire. Beyond the villa, the ocean sang its never-ending song, its waves a heartbeat against the shore, but inside my walls, the air was heavy, thick with the smell of roses and the echoes of my strikes. 3 days had gone by since I had set Nathan's world on fire and had broken Lily's dreams like brittle clay. The garden was blooming more fiercely now, as if it were being fed by the fire I had let loose, but my heart was no longer a storm but rather a river. Steady, but troubled, bearing both victory and a new burden. Was justice worth the shadow it cast? While I stood in the dining room, my papers served as a map of my achievements, but the eyes at the window sought something beyond retribution. As I had planned, Nathan's downfall was swift. By noon on the day I met Richard Caldwell, the firm's ethics investigation had placed him on administrative leave, tightening its grip around his ambition. Whispers reached me through mutual contacts. Nathan's face was pale as he left the office. His briefcase clutched like a shield, his pride, the polished armor of his senior partnership, was stripped away, leaving him exposed, a man who had gambled his honor and lost. My second strike had spread like wildfire. Sarah and Michael's lunch revelation rippled through our social circle. Friends who had once toasted our marriage now turned away from Nathan, their texts to me, cautious but clear, "We're with you, Clara." We had no idea. His allies dwindled, his name a stain they avoided. The next day, Elena called me, her voice a mixture of grief and resolve. "Lily's gone to a friend's place. She can't face us, Clara. She's broken, but she needed to see the truth." Though she couldn't see, I nodded, my throat tight with a strange pity. Lily's betrayal had cut deepest, but watching her unravel stirred no joy, only a hollow ache. Despite her youth and foolishness, Lily remained my niece, the girl who had once run to me in tears. I ignored the thought, focusing on the final stage that would determine their future. I texted Nathan that morning, sharp as obsidian, "We need to talk about the divorce. Come to the house tonight, 7 p.m., just you." His response was prompt, a glimmer of hope in his desperation. "Thank you, Clara. I'll be there." I set up the dining room like a battlefield, with a single folder in front of me, and 2 glasses of wine poured, their ruby glow catching the light from the chandelier. The folder contained a portion of my evidence, enough to wound, not destroy. I had drafted a settlement agreement, generous by legal standards, but it came with a price. Nathan would sign it, or I'd unleash my dossier, ending his career and future. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes shadowed, and the once confident lines of his jaw softened by strain. He said in a low voice, "Thank you for this. These weeks have been—" I held up a hand, interrupting him. "Sit, Nathan. This isn't a reconciliation." He sat, his eyes darting to the folder, fear piercing his features, and I pushed it toward him, my voice as steady as stone. "This isn't the divorce agreement. It's what happens if we don't agree on my terms. Open it." His hands trembled as he paged through the documents, which revealed financial misconduct at his firm, text messages with other women, and the timeline of his affair with Lily. "Why would you show me this?" You've already ruined me, Clara. The firm, our friend, he said in a raspy voice. I looked directly into his eyes and continued, because this is only the beginning. The firm's investigation? Me or the rumors among our pals? Could it be me? Lily's wounded heart? And the truth about you? I slid the settlement across the table and said, sign this, and you walk away with enough to start over, not comfortable but alive. The investigation closes quietly, your license stays intact, refuse, and I burn it all down. This, I tapped the folder, is a preview. If you fight me on the divorce, the full dossier goes to the state licensing board, to the IRS for your unreported side income, and to every client you shortchanged, Nathan. You won't just lose your job, Nathan, you'll lose everything. Perhaps for the first time he looked at me and said, who are you? You're not the Clara he married, he said, his voice cracking. With a sharp voice, I said, I'm precisely who I've always been. You just didn't look closely enough. You broke my world, Nathan. Don't test whether I'll break yours. I sipped my wine, the taste acrid against my tongue, and watched him struggle with his fate. He reached for the settlement, his fingers hesitating, then set it down. Unsigned. I need time, he said, standing. I'll think about it. I nodded, letting him go, knowing that my words would haunt him. I turned to Lily the following day, her punishment a quieter fire. I met Elena at the same Coronado Cafe, her face still etched with grief. Lily's asking to see you, she said, her hands cradling her coffee. She wants to apologize in person. She's lost, Clara. She doesn't know who she is without him. I thought, my heart divided between pity and resolve. Arrange it, I said, but not at the house. Somewhere neutral tomorrow. Elena nodded, relief softening her eyes. I didn't tell her the whole plan, and I didn't share the last piece I had prepared for Lily, a truth that would cut deeper than the family meeting. The meeting took place in a park by the sea, with the waves crashing like my thoughts. Lily was sitting on a bench, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. She stood up as I came up to her, and she said in a small voice, Aunt Clara, I'm so sorry. I know I've hurt you, hurt everyone. I thought I loved him. I thought I raised a hand to silence her, and I gave her a small box made of wood with simple lines carved on it. Inside was the silver bracelet she had worn with Nathan, with its twin still in my possession. There was a note next to it, written in my handwriting. This is what he gave you. A promise of forever that lasted 5 months. You weren't his love, Lily. You were his conquest. Keep this, not as a treasure, but as a lesson. You betrayed your family, your honor, for a lie. Rebuild yourself, or you'll forever remain this girl, following shadows. Lily's hands trembled as she read the note, tears streaming down her cheeks. I didn't know, she sobbed. I thought he cared. I thought I was special. I sat next to her, my voice soft but firm. You were special, Lily, to me, to your mother, to this family. You threw that away for him. He's not your future. He never was. You're 21. You can choose now, stay broken, or become someone stronger. She gripped the box, her sobs a raw, primal sound. I stood, leaving her with the ocean, and her truth. The bracelet was my last blow against her. Not to destroy, but to awaken. If she chose to rise, that was her path. If not, she would bear her scars. The roses were glowing in the moonlight as I sat in the villa's garden that evening. Nathan's unsigned agreement lay on my desk. An unanswered challenge. Lily. C. Tears were still fresh in my mind, reminding me of the price I had paid for my justice. I had destroyed their worlds, as I had promised, but the victory was bittersweet. My phone buzzed. Elena, her voice urgent. Nathan has been asking about you, Clara. He's desperate. Say she'll sign, but he wants to meet again. He's staying at a hotel downtown. What do I tell him? The last stage was approaching, but a new shadow loomed. My retribution had changed me. But at what cost? I paused, the sound of the water filling the quiet, and said, Tell him I'll meet him tomorrow. Same time, same place. I knew the answer lay in the calm after the storm, not in the fire. As I looked at the roses, their thorns as sharp as my resolve. 3 weeks had gone by since I'd given Nathan my ultimatum, since I'd left Lily with her bracelet and her dashed hopes, and the storm I'd called in had subsided, its fire cooled to embers, but the question still hung like smoke: what had my justice wrought? The roses in my garden drank the morning light, their petals as soft as whispers. But their thorns stood guard, a reminder of the strength beneath beauty. Who was I now, standing on the ashes of my former existence, even if I was no longer the woman who had walked into betrayal? The morning after our last meeting, Nathan gave up. A courier brought the divorce agreement to the villa, its pages crisp, his signature a jagged scar. Inside was a note, written in an unsteady hand. "Clara, you win. I apologize for everything." I read it once, then put it in a drawer, unable to bear its weight. Winning wasn't a game, it was survival, a reclaiming of the life he'd attempted to steal. The settlement was completed quickly. Our assets were divided, the villa was sold, and I had leased a smaller house in Del Mar, a place that was mine alone, unhaunted by his shadow. "Clara," he said, as we stood to leave, his voice low, "I never meant to hurt you. I know it doesn't matter now. But I loved you. In my way." I looked at him, the rhythm of the ocean in my head. "Your way wasn't love, Nathan. It was possession. You broke what we built, but I sipped not broken." He nodded, a flicker of understanding in his eyes, and then walked away, a stranger to the woman I'd become. The last meeting with Nathan was a formality, set up at my attorney's office downtown. Lily's path was more subdued, but no less profound. A month after our meeting in the park, she sent me a letter that was 10 pages long and filled with regret. The letter read, "Aunt Clara, I betrayed you. I betrayed myself. I see now what I did and what it cost. I'm back at school trying to rebuild. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I'm truly sorry." I read it twice, my heart caught between the past and the present. She was young, and Nathan's lies shaped her decisions. But the scar from her betrayal lingered, a scar that hurt in quiet moments. I didn't reply, not yet. But I kept the letter because it was a seed of possibility for a future I couldn't yet see. We met once a week for dinner, and Elena and I grew closer as our bond was forged in the furnace of truth. Her laughter was a balm, and her strength was a mirror to mine. One evening, with cautious hope in her eyes, she told me, "Lily's changing." I nodded, sipping wine, which tasted clean and sharp, and she said, "It wasn't about saving her. It was about showing her the mirror. What she does with it is her choice." Elena squeezed my hand. "You gave her a chance." That quote, see, more than she deserved. Her words stuck with me as a reminder that justice can be both a blade and a beacon. Using my silence as leverage for a neutral reference, he had resigned from the firm before they could terminate his employment. He had moved to Portland and taken a junior role at a smaller company, his ambitions scaled back, his name still tainted by rumors of misconduct. His new life was modest, a stark contrast to the empire he had once dreamed of. I felt no triumph, only a quiet certainty that my plan had worked. He'd escaped complete ruin because I'd allowed it, a mercy I occasionally questioned, but that allowed me to move forward unburdened by his fate. 6 months after the betrayal, I stood on a balcony in Lisbon with the Tagus River glistening below. My journey was one of rediscovery. I had taken time off work, sold the last remnants of our shared life, and set out to find the woman I was beyond the wife and the avenger. In Barcelona, I had wandered through Gaudi's mosaics, whose colors ignited my soul. In Rome, I had joined a professor's tour group whose laughter reminded me of our connection. In Paris, I had sat by the Seine, writing a letter to myself. "Clara, you faced betrayal and chose to rise. You wove justice with precision, not rage. You are not defined by what was done but by what you did. Carry forward, always forward." I sealed it, tucked it into my bag. A talisman for the road ahead. Back in Del Mar, I planted a new garden with roses and lavender, creating a resilient tapestry. My career flourished, and IWAs promoted because of the clarity I had gained. The pain of betrayal had lessened and was now a scar rather than a wound. But it was no longer ruling me. One evening Michael, who was now divorced from Sarah, called, his voice warm across the miles, saying, "Clara, your courage gave me mine. Facing the truth about Sarah, about Nathan, you didn't just get even, you set things right." I smiled, the song of the ocean playing in my ears. "It wasn't about righting wrongs, Michael. It was about reclaiming my story," he said. Pausing before continuing, I was standing in my garden, pruning roses in the late afternoon sun. A year to the day after I had walked in on Nathan and Lily. The Del Mar house was smaller and simpler, but every inch of it was mine, chosen, and loved. The divorce had made me secure, and my heart had learned to trust again, not in other people, but in myself. I thought about Nathan, whose life had been diminished by his choices, and Lily, who was rebuilding cautiously with her letter still unanswered, and Elena, my sister and my ally, whose love had carried me through. The journey had been a spiral rather than a line, with each turn revealing a new discovery. Tyranny was as evident as the sky, as I held a rose with a sweet and sharp scent. Nathan and Lily meant to kill me and end my story, but they were a painful but needed chapter. In exposing their lies, I had discovered a strength and resilience I had never known before. The greatest retaliation wasn't the fire I had started or the worlds I had destroyed, rather it was my refusal to allow their betrayal to define me. I had constructed a life not out of their ruins, but of my creation, a garden where I bloomed, thorns and all. The sun sank into the sea, casting gold across my roses, and I knew the truth. The worst thing that had happened to me had led to the person I was most proud to be. That was my revenge, not a moment, but a life, not a fire, but a dawn. And unlike Nathan's promises, or Lily's dreams, it would endure, as steady as the ocean, as fierce as the roses in my garden. That evening I raised a glass to the woman I had become, forged by betrayal, tempered by justice, but defined by neither.